Okay, welcome to our Storytime podcast within our Home Unity Project Up Discord. And tonight I am here with Storytime with Chief. I'm here with Chameleon. I'm here with Jessica. So welcome all and thank you again. It's always a pleasure to come in with you guys.
It's always a pleasure to be here to share a story with everybody.
A fine evening to you all.
Yes, it is. It actually wasn't that
Hi.
cold.
Bye. Okay, so we are doing the Wait For Me series, which was discussed earlier in our live.
Uh huh.
All right.
Since it's just before Valentine's, I thought we would do something that pertains to love and relationships, that sort of thing. So
All right.
yeah. And if everybody is ready, we can start.
I'm ready.
Okay. This is Wait for Me. That's the chapter title too. Okay. So there's no. Okay. Our story is one of many that float on the winds of time. It tells of a tale as old as story itself, of how one person loves another, but that person is promised to another. Our story begins, as most do, with the couple and the undeclared love as children, doing what children do when they are young. And it was these days that the three were always together. No matter the game or the occasion, they were always together. Even as they grew older and had less time together, the short amount of time they did have to spare was spent together. Many years passed, with this being the norm, and as the years went by, the girl grew to be a beautiful maiden who captivated all attention from the young men, and the boys had grown into handsome men who had their own pursuers, but for the maiden her eyes were drawn to that one of the men she'd grown up calling friend. So she was as delighted as many in the village when her friend had revealed to her his true feelings and asked her hand in marriage. But it was the other boy who had grown with them that had an undying love for the maiden, but being unsure of her feelings and not wanting to ruin the friendship, did not speak up. And so time passed with the silent love, never revealing his feelings for the maiden, and the couple being married shortly after the accepted proposal. It was the day the maiden's husband had left with a war party to help defend their land, when the silent love finally went to the maiden and told her of how he'd loved her since childhood, and how her tears fell, for he had told her when she had learned of her husband falling in battle that day. And so, seeing her tears and how she had nothing to say, the silent lover thought he had made a grave mistake, and after gathering all his possessions that he and his pony could carry, he left the village. And when the maiden, after a few days of mourning her husband, went to his lodge, only to discover it abandoned, broke down once more, and from that day on, she turned away all other marriage proposals, and it is said she would walk to the top of a hill that was a short way from the village. Her cries and song of mourning could be heard as she waited for her beloved in the hopes of one day he would return. To be continued.
So that parallels on the whole, what is it, the morning lady that you always kind of hear with like ghost legends?
Uh,
You know, the one
and
that's
I,
always
I took inspiration from that, but you'll see at the end where I sort of um, made it more of a happy sort of thing. Not to give the ending away, but it's
okay.
more of a happy sort of ending. So yeah,
All right, I'll let you continue.
this is Still Waiting. Our story is one that floats on the winds of time, and it tells of a love that was lost in a misunderstanding of a show of emotions. It tells of a young woman who had just lost a childhood friend who soon grew to be her husband after many years of friendship had revealed his true feelings for her. This story This story tells not only of the man who had grown with her from childhood, but also about another friend who had grown beside them as an inseparable group, which made the loss of her husband hurt even more because that was also the day she lost her lifelong friend after he had come to her the day she had learned of her husband falling in battle and had mistook her tears grieving that loss to mean she didn't have any feelings towards him. And it was from that day on, for the past months that seemed to pass with the swiftness of the rushing river's current, that the grieving woman would walk to the top of a hill that overlooked the village every day before the sun had risen, carrying only a small handmade drum set, a small blanket, and a small bundle of firewood. It is there that you'll see the small plume of smoke from the small fire and also hear the faint beat of the drum along with the soft whispers of her softly spoken song of grieving as she waits to see if the one who might possibly repair those days ago. She sits singing and hoping that he might one day venture back to their childhood village, with the smoke of her small fire being a sign of the village still being there, and where she has made up her mind to stay no longer, no matter how long she has to wait. To be continued.
You want to continue on to the next one? Oh, for some reason it froze on my end, guys. Hold on, it froze on my end. Well, this is a fun podcast. I can entertain on the as it comes back on. Jeez. Okay, I'm gonna entertain in the intermission. Uh, so that we come back onto this podcast. Sorry for the technical difficulties today. All right, let's see if that happens. I think it's Discord. Let's go back in here. There we go.
Tears of sadness about her husband's death
Wait,
for dismissal of his heartfelt words to her.
you might have to.
That it.
You might
We
actually.
might have to do the second part again.
That's the last part. The second part came through, and I apologize. I know that they can hear me through the recording, but Discord reset on my end, and it totally froze. So I didn't hear the last part of the story.
The part that I'm reading now, or the last part of the second part?
The waiting's end.
Okay. Wait. What? Waiting's end. Still waiting. Is that the part that you mean?
No, still waiting. We just did.
Okay, we just barely did. We're just barely starting waiting's end.
I never heard the beginning of waiting's end. That's when it froze.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Technical difficulties. So we'll start waiting's end again, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. This is waiting's end. Our story is one of many that float on the winds of time. It tells of a heartbroken woman who, having lost her husband and her lifelong friend on the same day, for her husband having made the journey to the spirit world, and her friend having come to her the same day of her learning the fate of her husband, having finally confessed his true feelings for her, and having mistook her tears of sadness about her husband's death for dismissal of his heartfelt words to her. That it was after taking time to herself that she went to his lodge only to find it empty, and so from that day on she journeyed to the hill, where she waited all day from sunrise to when the sun left the sky each day. It had been many days that had turned to months that the woman had made her journey to the top of the hill. But it is said that it was this day that legend says her friend had returned after all those months of being away, having changed in so many ways from the man who had left all those months ago. His face hardened into a mask that showed little emotion. His hands scarred from the endless miles he seemed to have to wrestle his very survival from the clutches of death itself. It was this man that surprised the woman as she knelt on the ground singing with the beat of her drum, and small fire, whose small plume of smoke being the only evidence of her being there among the small grove of trees atop the hill. After a few moments of staring at each other, the man climbs from his horse and rushes towards the woman, who at the same time rushes towards him, and they embrace. That moment being one that you would either have to that moment being one that you would have to either have been there to witness, or having been the one to experience to understand that meaning. So it is said that they lived happily together with a large family, and all the people of the village being their most cared for friends and family. I tell this story for two reasons: to show how, no matter the miles that separate us, when we truly care for each other, nothing can keep us apart. And also, and also to share with you that legend says that if you find a hill with an outlook where you can see for miles around you, you just might see the couple that miles and time couldn't separate. The end.
Wow, that hits some really good ones. It's funny because, like you said, like you took inspiration, even though at the end that they had that meeting, from I seen in the beginning with, like I said, the morning woman.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know because Jessica's in my area. If you've heard of, I forget what it's called, but there's a house out in Lewiston, and there's the Van Horn Mansion. It's actually a legend of a lady who waited, and she's seen in the window as a ghost to wait for her
Uh,
husband to return. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like she's been sitting in that house, and that house has been up there since the 1800s. But it's like, I mean, I couldn't imagine being passed over and not being able to have that connection back. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Still waiting. But yeah, that's a beautiful ending to that story. I like that one.
Uh, and there's so many ways that you could take it. You you could take it like you could only focus on the beginning part of it where everybody goes through like a loss, and then it's just how you pick yourself up from that loss, and how there's always somebody that's probably going to be there to help you through that loss, even though you feel like you have nobody, which is what she probably felt. Like there was still the village there, but nobody really understood what she was going through because nobody experienced the loss that she did, basically.
Yeah.
That's how I would take it, anyways.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But yeah, I think it's a pretty good story. It draws you in at the beginning because it seems so sad, and then we put a nice little bow on it and leave you almost crying in happiness.
Yeah. I mean, that parallels on, like I said, people in their soulmate journeys or twin flame journeys or whatever journeys they're on right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Some people are waiting, but it's like a good Valentine's Day ending.
yeah. But the next one that we're gonna do, I'm gonna make you choose either the original ending and then or the ending that went in the book. So you'll either get one that Grandma says is controversial, but I really like that ending because it's more factual in what could be seen in a more modern day sort of thing. You do not look out of
You
place.
don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
So, which one did we pick for the next one?
You said that you wanted to do Lost Love for Valentine's Day
Ah, okay.
but Lost Love has two endings
I see that.
and one more controversial than the other one. Because I did it in a way that the beginning of the ending is the same, but I just flipped the end of the end, and Grandma really didn't um, appreciate the original ending, so I had to go back and
She wants a
write.
happy ending a lot.
Yeah, so
On
I'm like that's not realistic. They all can't be happy.
No, they all teach a lesson. I mean, or like you said, it's a fable basically, but it's still folklore and it does teach a lesson. And then like you said, you take a lot of the myths and other stories and weave them in. Um and tell that like one common story, a common thread story, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because that's what I did with the a lot of them that like that one where I have the one main character like in Creator's Will, like the guy with the handprint. He's in like 3 or 4 stories because he was just an awesome character to just have in a story. And then I was able to incorporate the guy in the Lost Love story is the legendary warrior's son. So I was able to expand off of him. And he had, remember how in Creator's Will it says that his son got handed down a knife, and not to spoil like Lost Love, but um, that's the knife that he uses in the story. So yeah, you have a lot of um, timeline stuff there.
it'd be interesting to do again. And like, I like, because like I always go back to the original story, but then you see where
Yeah,
all the stories fractal off with, so you could see where they can converge at.
yeah,
But yeah, that was a good one for, like I said, we're in a way doing it for Valentine's Day, um, and how many people out there that are, I've even in the ratings that people have looked for love recently. They're looking for it in their heart space,
yeah.
but also how many people are left behind. Like how many don't get that happy ending? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
How
or
many
have
people are still waiting?
right or have people that passed
Mm.
over and they're not like I was saying passed over and they're not here anymore.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, in the beginning of that, where she was like, okay, her husband dies, and then the person that is her friend that confesses to love and then leaves, it's like, oh, wow.
when I first read that to Grandma, she's like, "Well, I don't really like that part of it because he shouldn't have left. He should have stayed there and at least heard her out and found out why she just stood there crying or whatever." I was like, "Well, okay, Grandma, you don't have to get so wrapped up in the story that you get personally offended by it."
Well, that's up to perspective. We've done that. How many people I know? How many people are like wrapped up in it, like the perspective of it?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, like, we've done that with perception lately. It's just what vibration a person is in. Um, Also, like, the way they're looking at the story. And some person takes a piece of something and sees it in a different light, and we give it to somebody else and they see it in a different shape, a different color, even. So, and it's the same object, it's just how everybody perceives it, how they come across it.
yeah.
It does beg the question of why he left. I mean, other than maybe he just thinking it was not going to be reciprocated.
Yeah. It takes a lot to put yourself out there. Let's be honest. It takes a lot. And then if they're just standing there crying or not, didn't really have anything to say, you're just going to be, oh, what did I do? Like, how is this going to change everything? You know? especially after you've known that person for so long.
True. It's
Uh,
admirable, like, that she waited because she said she was going to get married, but then he also, it's kind of like the growing apart phase. Like, you
yeah,
lose something like that, and the healing phase in the heart, because, some people, when they get out of a relationship with somebody, or again, somebody dies in the relationship, passes in the relationship, transitions, they look to fill that void in their heart instead of learning how to be alone by themselves sometimes. So that's like a healing
yeah,
step, the whole independence thing.
yeah,
Some people don't know how to be independent, and they're in a codependency.
yeah.
So I mean, I guess that was good for both of them, for him to leave in a way. And like
I
it
don't know. I still see it like Grandma thought, like he should have just stayed there and at least let her collect herself a minute, and then we wouldn't have had to go through the whole. He wouldn't have had to go out there and risk his life out in the wilderness.
hmm,
But I don't know. That's just me.
well, yeah, that's true. It's like, here, I love you, bye. She said it's also be detrimental too, because you get comfortable being alone for too
Yeah,
long, and you don't know how to acknowledge or reciprocate in a relationship or relationship situation or romantic situation instead. It's true.
yeah. That's why I say I'm just forever going to be alone. I'm just cool with being alone.
Hey, if you're good with being by yourself, I mean, that's, again, it's being comfortable. Know thyself. So it's like, if
Yeah,
somebody else comes to the table, they better bring some pretty hefty full cup or something to the table, because it's like, well,
yeah,
I'm already set. I got my dessert. I got my, my meal. I got my cup filled. And what are you bringing?
yeah.
Are we having a meal together? What's going on? So
But
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
you could. I think you could also look at it as sort of a sort of a thing where you think that you know somebody's reaction if you're going to say something, and then if you don't get that reaction, how you can um, overreact yourself and think that you did something wrong to them without even knowing like how they were really going to react.
True. You also have the notion of the fact that he could have been really, when she got married to the other person, her husband, he could have been really, in a way, angry at that. I mean, it just shows unconditional love, that no matter what situation happens, they he still loved her no matter what.
Yeah,
But let me go out in the wilderness and, like, take a walk.
yeah.
A long walk.
Maybe that's what we all need after something like that, is to go out, and maybe he found perspective in maybe just being by himself and being able to think like, well, maybe I mistook the situation and maybe I shouldn't have overreacted the way that I did, and maybe I should go back and see if she'll tell me how she feels or something.
So you're just saying this, the story could have like a spin-off, right? To see what
Yeah,
happens to the to him out in the woods.
yeah,
What he went through.
yeah.
A whole vision quest. Lost an eye, came back with a peg leg.
Okay. Did they even do peg? I think if you just lost your leg back then, you just was hopping around with your one leg. Or,
I think that's a pirate thing, but yeah. Peg
yeah,
leg is a pirate thing. You don't want to be unbalanced if you're on a ship with one leg.
yeah. Oh my. Yeah, the things that we say sometimes are out there. You should have heard the things that we came up with when we read the Bigfoot story. If you think that's, oh my god,
Oh yeah.
but we were talking about aliens and coming up with all kinds of things that he could be, and
Yeah, this one was more of a, it was a more heartfelt, more down to earth, not so much supernatural at all, but This one is a good story. It's one of those heart
That
stories.
that just shows how diverse I am as a writer.
Yes.
Where I can, because the next one, I think that it's Lost Love, where my romantic life wasn't really going the best. So, like I told you before, like I think that I'm most creative when I'm feeling some sort of way, because that way I can knock out 3 or 4 stories if I'm not feeling like the best emotionally for some reason. And yeah,
No, I can understand that. Actually, if you want to hear a short story, one of the paintings I have was based loosely on a Chinese mythology of a painter goddess. She painted wisteria trees, and what happened was one day she decided to come out of her painting to find somebody that she thought was her true love, and it wasn't reciprocated. So instead, she went back into her world of painting, went back into the
uh,
painting, and basically didn't have that reciprocal love. So it's just like I understand the process. There's times, and if I'm too emotional or don't want to deal with it, I will bury myself in a painting. And then there's times in between where it's like, nope, the passion's gone for a little bit because sometimes it's so much of an upheaval. So it just happens to
yeah,
depend on what it is.
yeah.
But yeah,
Because the way that I am, if I really just sit down and just type like I normally do, I can do like 2 stories a day, and it'll only take me probably like 2 hour, like maybe like 2 hours to actually sit down and actually type the story out, and then another like hour to read to go through it and be like, well, I could add this in there, and then it'll bring this out, and then so yeah, most of the stories that are in the book, even I didn't. The longest one was probably the creator series, because that
oh
was the first one. That was the first one, and I wanted that one to be like my premiere coming out. That's the one I was like, that's the first one that's going to go in the book. So I need to make that one the most detailed, and you're actually make you want to feel like you're actually there in the story. Like,
yep, I understand that. Like the first was the first music one with the paintings for me. Like same thing. It's like if you want it to be as big, you want it to be the way it flows really good. So you really put your all in that first premiere one. And then
yeah,
afterwards everything is like, like a painting in my sleep. I'm sleep painting. So
yeah,
it's like, it's something like second nature now to go and do it.
yeah,
Hmm. We should do that. I don't think we did the creator one. We should do that again. We'll do the
yeah.
Lost Love series for Valentine's. Did you write?
She
It
wrote a
happens.
whole like manuscript.
We'll read it. So Jessica writes, it happens a lot in music ship. Like Nine Inch Nails, for instance, they've been creating happy or normal feeling music, and a lot of their fans don't dig it or believe it because it wasn't written during their darker periods. But everyone gets through those stages, so one can't expect an entire musician's catalog to carry the same emotion throughout. Every artist I love had a dark period or light period. I personally don't write unless it's based on personal experience, first person. Imagination and the fiction stuff is hard for me to do.
Mm,
I can understand that. And it is like you go
yeah,
through these, how you function during those dark periods and light periods.
yeah,
I know like a lot of some of that like I said any of the album paintings that I did, I know that there's an element of destruction in it, and then there's also the element of creation in it at the same time as they move.
mm,
So it's kind of embodying both. But um to get into one genre for me, like one lighter, darker period or one emotion, it's hard for me to paint just one emotion since
yeah,
there's so many different colors for it, the way I see emotions. Some of the best stuff I write is when I'm going through insomnia. No, I get that too. I'm sure Chief does.
yeah, yeah. I
Or
could be up sometimes at like 2 in the morning when something strikes. I'm like, oh, I could make a story out of that, and be up at like 2 And I'm like, why am I awake right now? And then I'm like, oh, well, that's why I'm awake. And the story is basically just written itself. And I'm like, well, that was cool.
I'm sure Jerry does that. um, but I don't know how many times I did that with I was in a recent podcast I admitted to, but to get up in the middle of the night and actually save an article or save, I don't even know what it is, save a post somewhere or a picture or a screenshot or actually like even something like a book article on something like history. And I
Mhm.
normally in the morning I check my phone every morning to see if I put anything in a notepad because I'm totally like sleep, like I don't even know I'm awake doing it. I've done
Yeah.
that before. It's kind of like
Yeah.
channeling. I'm like, what did I just save? What do I have on my phone now this morning? I end up finding opportunities that way. I'm like, wow, where did this come from? Just popped out of nowhere. Look, it's a job for this. And I'm like, all right, that just showed up. I get what she's saying. I don't over like she's saying I don't overthink. There's times when growing up, because I used to write a lot of little science fiction stories. Uh,
uh,
and in order for me, I would write them the next day. I would run them through my head right before I go to sleep. So some people run their day
yeah.
through their head, and I run the story through my head. Like,
Yeah.
and then this way, it's like my own bedtime story, but I'm watching it, I'm playing it, I'm in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing what else that Jessica's writing. We can see some of it on the screen, but when the big paragraph comes in, so that's why I was reading it.
I
It
know, right?
it won't show up on all of it, so I read it. On the recording, it shows up in the little corner on there. The
Yeah.
the
It won't.
funny the funny thing is on her screenshot, it shows her screen picture as being pink, and on here it's
Yeah.
yellow.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I guess it's just cause on her screenshot my background is black or grayish and it's more gray than it is black on my screen.
Yeah, so Jerry's sleeping. I don't know if Jerry's sleeping.
Probably. That's just how good the story is, you know.
I don't know. Jerry is. Go ahead.
I'm not sleeping.
Oh.
I'm
It was a
awake.
good story though, right, Jerry?
Yeah, yes, it was a good story.
I think that one, and then it's a toss up between either Creator's Will or Lost Love. Those are probably the best ones. With like the Chief series being like second tier because I was able to take the Chief series and then make the Maiden series out of that one. So that gave me inspiration towards that. And then I took pieces of the Traveling Hunter from the Chief series and then put that into a whole different series by itself. But I didn't go into it's more of a what would you call it, a um spiritual journey sort of series with that one
Hmm.
because it talks about being able to like the guy goes to sleep and then he sees how well the chief has everything in the village, and so that night he goes to sleep and then he wakes up in the morning and he's the chief, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's one of those type of things because the inspiration just struck, and I was like, well, I could make a story about that.
Hmm.
But one of the better ones that I didn't write, but that I want to take inspiration is the Comrades. It's a story about these two. They're basically like twins, but they're not from the same mother, you know. In the story, the main character finds the his finds this baby being like tormented by this um by this like demon type character,
Hmm.
and and he's like, well, give me that baby. You shouldn't be doing that sort of thing to the demon. And so he ends up with that baby. And then he ends up going to sleep, and then in the morning, that baby has transformed into like a almost a replica of him. And so as you go through the story, he finds this guy like entangled in a tree where he can't get out, and he tells the guy, "I will suffer this thing so that you can go back to your family." And so the copy basically comes and finds him um, trapped in the tree, and he says, "Well, you shouldn't take on tortures that it weren't yours to bear, basically, sort of thing." And so, progress through the story, he stumbles upon this blind man in this teepee, and the blind man's like, "Well, I would like to go down to the stream um, to go get a drink of water, but I can't see." And even though he could get to the stream and back because his son had made lines to with like animal hide to the stream and all to like gather wood in the forest and all that and back to the teepee. So as long as he kept hold of the strings, he would be able to get to where he needed to go and back. And then, but so instead of doing that, like when he found the guy trapped in the tree, he gives the old man his eyes, and he's stuck there. And in the story, he goes out because he feels like the fire's about to go out, and so he goes out to the woods, and he with being led by the string, and he's stumbling around the woods, knocking into trees and falling over because he lost the string that would take him back to the teepee.
That ties a
And
lot of
then
stories.
and and
Well,
then
that's one story, and I
yeah,
remember reading it
yeah,
when I first met you. That's
yeah,
got to be 3 years.
that story. Yeah,
You read it then. You just told it just then.
yeah,
Yeah, that sounds like, I mean, well, Jessica said, you'll never hear us on the East Coast say the word teepee, lol. A lot of people also don't use the word tribe. Heavy, can't read it, hold on. Heavy Haudenosaunee population here. This story sounds really interesting though. I just haven't heard the teepee word in so long. I
yeah,
I like what you were saying with the story because it shows like a changeling, but it also
Yeah.
describes
yeah,
what in the spiritual community now, like we said, step-ins or walk-ins in a
yeah,
way. But it also describes again the person in the tree, and you say giving him the eye, which be like the story with Odin sacrificing his eye in the tree, use
yeah,
the sacrifice to get knowledge. But then the string, like with the labyrinth, so you have the whole labyrinth
yeah.
thing with the Minotaur. That's cool.
Mm. But yeah, that's on the main because I put the ones that I wrote on the book Discord, and then we have another main Discord where we have more people on that Discord, and we used to do story time on there. And so I had to go and find a whole bunch of stories to keep everybody entertained for a couple hours, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Was that the Discord in 2018 or the one in 2020?
No, that is my main Discord that I have right now. That's the
Ah, okay.
one where I left you guys' Discord. That was the original I am Discord.
Ah, okay.
That was I am, and then I changed it to Chiefs Powwow, and then I made the book Discord, and then I made the I am. I have a I am Discord, which is yeah, because I have like three or four. Yeah, I have four now because I made another one because the next book, once I get it published, is going to be called The Seed Collector. Because that's basically what I'm doing is that I'm taking all these little I guess, these stories, and then I'm able to take the little sprinkling of whatever you need to get out of the story, and I'm able to give it to you, and then you're gonna do with it what you want to do with it. I guess if you want to grow it and watch what becomes of it, or just take it and have it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think we talked about it recently. It was with certain interactions with you have the keys of creation in a way, but what do you do with it? Do you destroy
Yeah.
it? Do you just throw it away? Do you actually create something?
Uh,
There's actually a conversation I had earlier today with somebody about again, everybody, like, we've talked about this heaven vibe, vibration, and some people call it 5D, but it's beyond that right now. And the
yeah.
vibrational pattern we're in. And I go, well, everybody technically has that heaven space bubble, if you want to call it. They have it, but what did they do with it? So some of it is, some people didn't grow the seed, or some people are, they don't know the way the system kind of gets in their brain and twists it, and they're not able to get out, like, raise the vibration in their own space to get into a better position, what you would call ascension in a way. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, seed collector.
Yeah. Seed
I
collector.
would say that everyone is creating all the time.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are, but are they creating creation, or are they creating destruction? That's the question.
Um, they're creating what
Sure.
they focus on and believe in.
Right, they're creating what they believe in, but are they creating, again, some people believe in destruction, some people believe
It,
in things
yeah,
destroying
it
them.
may, yeah, it may be their destruction. It may be their trap, their prison.
Yeah,
It may be their freedom.
exactly.
Um, but we are creating. We That's our nature.
Hmm.
It's
Mm.
not a question of whether you exercise. You know, everything. That's what this world is. It's our creation.
Right,
Yeah.
you create the reality space around us with what you believe in. So
I believe in, yes.
mhm.
I got a story you might like though, Rose. It's called the first moccasins. Have you heard about it?
No.
I don't. It shouldn't take that long because I don't think it's that. I didn't write it. It's one of those ones I found, and yeah, it's called the first moccasins. If you wanted to do another story, since that one was sort of short, but
Yeah,
it's
we
up to
can.
you.
We got like 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it's not going to take 10. As fast as I read it, it's not going to take 10 minutes.
No.
But yeah, this is the first moccasins, and you could use this or not, whether it doesn't really matter because I didn't write it. But okay,
Hmm.
okay. There was once a great chief of the plains who had very tender feet. Other mighty chiefs laughed at him. Little chiefs only smiled as he hobbled past. And though they did not dare to smile, the people of the tribe also enjoyed the big chief's discomfort. All of them were in the same canoe, having no horses and only bare feet. But luckily, very few of them had tender feet. And the unhappily medicine man who was advisor to the chief of the tenderfeet was afraid and troubled. Each time he was called before the chief, he was asked, "What are you going to do about it?" The it meant the chief's tender feet. Forced by fear, the medicine man was last hit upon a plan. Though he knew it was not the real answer to the chief's foot problem, nevertheless it was a good makeshift. The medicine man had some women of the tribe weave a long, narrow mat of reeds, and when the big chief had to go anywhere, 4 braves unrolled the mat in front of him so that he walked in comfort. One day the braves were worn out from seeing that the chief's feet were not worn out. They carelessly unrolled the mat over a place where flint arrowheads had been chipped. The arrowheads had long since taken flight, but the needle sharp chips remained. When the big chief's tender feet were wounded by these chips, he uttered a series of whoops that made the nearby aspen tree leaves quiver so hard that they have been trembling ever since. That night, the poor medicine man was given an impossible task by the angry chief. Cover the whole world with Cover the whole earth with mats so thick that my feet will not suffer. If you fail, you will die when the moon is round. The frightened maker of magic crept back to his lodge. He did not wish to be put to death on the night of the full moon, but he could think of no way to avoid it. Suddenly he saw the hide of an elk, which he had killed, pegged to the ground, with two women busily scraping the hair from the hide, and an idea flashed into his groping mind. He sent out many hunters. Many women were busy for many days. Many braves were hunt- with hunting knives cut, and the women sewed with bone needles and rawhide sinews. On the day before the moon was round, the medicine man went to the chief and told him that he had covered as much of the earth as was possible in so short a time. When the chief looked from the door of his lodge, he saw many paths of skin stretching as far as he could see. Long strips which could be moved from place to place connected the main leather paths. Even the chief thought that this time the magic of the medicine man had solved tenderfoot transportation for all time. But this was not to be. One day, as the big chief was walking along one of his smooth, tough leather paths, he saw a pretty maiden of the tribe gliding ahead of him, walking on the hard earth on one side of the chief's pathway. She glanced back when she heard the pitter patter of his feet on the elk hide pathway and seemed to smile. The chief set off on a run to catch up with her, his eyes fixed on the back of she who smiled, and so his feet strayed from the narrow path and landed in a bunch of needle sharp thorns. The girl ran for her life when she heard the hideous howls of the chief, and the Indians in the distant village thought they were being attacked by wild cats. 2 suns later, when the chief was calm enough to speak again, he had his medicine man brought before him and told the unhappy man that next day, when the sun was high, he would be sent with all speed to the land of shadows. That night, the medicine man climbed to the top of a high hill in search of advice from friendly spirits on how to cover the entire earth with leather. He slept and had and in a dream he slept, and in a dream vision he was shown the answer to his problem. Amid vivid flashes of lightning, he tore down the steep hillside, howling louder than the big chief at times, as jagged rocks wounded his bare feet and legs. He did not stop until he was safely inside his lodge. He worked all night and until the warriors who were to send him to the shadow trail came for him just before noon the next day. He was surrounded by the war club armed guards. He was clutching close to his heart something tightly rolled in a piece of deerskin. His cheerful smile surprised those who saw him pass. "Whoa, he is brave," said the men of the village. Said the men of the tribe. "He is very brave," said the women of the tribe. The big chief was waiting just outside his lodge. He gave the guards swift, stern orders. Before the maker of magic could be led away, leave to stay a few. He asked leave. He asked please to say a few words to the chief. "Speak," said the chief, sorry to lose the clever medicine man, who was very good at all kinds of magic. Even the chief knew that covering the entire earth with leather was an impossible task. The medicine man quickly knelt beside the chief, unrolled the two objects which he took from his bundle, and slipped one of them on each foot of the chief. The chief seemed to be wearing a pair of bear's hairless feet instead of bare feet, and he was puzzled at first as he looked at the elk hide handcraft of his medicine man. "Big chief," said medicine man, ex- the medicine man exclaimed joyfully, "I have found the way to cover the earth with leather. For you, O chief, from now on the earth will always be covered in leather." And so it was.
also take something great out of it.
I always like that story.
It's an awesome story.
Especially when he's walking down, the girl's running after the girl, and then he runs into the thorns, and
Right? Wasn't paying attention.
that was so good.
It would be a happy little accident, right? That wasn't an
Yeah,
accident, but turned into something good.
I always like that story.
Thank you. I like hearing that one. That's good. All right. So I think we've been going for an hour. I want to
Yeah.
thank you for the stories. So I will end this podcast here. And you can find Chief's book on Amazon. I believe a link for Barnes and Nobles too. I kind of went and put a bunch of links on there.
Yeah.
And your Discord. I think I have your link to your Discord, so I can put that in there as
And
well. And
then it's on like iTunes and Kindle and all that sort of stuff if you want on your phone or your tablet or.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I will put those links in the description box. And I thank you for the stories. And thank you, Jerry and Jessica, for being here.
Well, very good. I remember that one from way back too, Chief.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And I will